All right, let's see how this is working. I hope you're back there. Are you with us, folks? Yeah, we'll get this under control here in a minute. A little bit of drunk driving on the camera. Okay. Well, you know what? We're going to go with it. We're going to go with what we got and hope that the people will wind up finding us. So we're terribly sorry for any inconvenience, but sometimes things happen.
We haven't. See, it says we have sound.
We haven't. Okay. Hey, we got 3 of you back. Okay. Now the question of the hour. Can you hear me? This is my Verizon commercial. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Please, somebody. I can't hear worth a damn, but you might be able to hear us, and we would hate to. Good day, and welcome to the Art of Fire. Actually, if you've seen all those idiotic videos on Facebook where people hold up stupid signs and give a whole narrative about some lame thing, if we run out of sound again, we're going to do that. Foster and Todd and I will take turns making up signs to show. You want to show us the ASL version of glass blowing? Okay, here we go. So a little late, but here nonetheless. And Todd is going to start us off with what? Todd?
We're going to do the platter. This is another custom order. I know we've done pieces for them before. This is for Annealer Health. And again, I have the very good fortune of creating commemorative pieces for some of their employees. I do custom work with the woman who coordinates their event medicine, who it's always a pleasure to work with. We're making a platter for a young lady named Melania. No. Oh, shoot. Melina. Sorry. We're going to mix a little bit of gold tones. We've got a large format frit that is cranberry pink, salmon pink, and iris gold. When these colors mix together, we get a lot of really nice texture. We're going to put a background on it, a gold brown opaque background known as Sahara, and that should really bring all those gold tones and oranges into this piece. It's going to be about 4 big gallons of glass by the time we're done. We'll flip this piece over, drop a foot, turn it around. Once we turn it around, then we'll finally get to see what's inside. We're going to, like we always do, work from the inside out. We're going to do all our design on the inside. We're going to work from the bottom up, and when we turn it around, we'll finally get to see what's on the inside. That should be enough hand motions.
Okay.
All right.
And here we go with another Bass Ackwards creation.
Say bass backwards?
No. Actually, we do a lot of that where we do things kind of in reverse order. And it's quite common. Okay. So if you're just joining us right now, or if you didn't see the start to the video with our silent movie version, Foster did inform us that the Ren Fair is a go this year, and we'll review again how you can get tickets and whatnot. And okay, I'm going to assume that having no idea what Todd said is not a reflection on the sound of the video. Though David Hogan said you did just signal for a fair catch. That's true. All right. All righty. So Todd's got the first gather of clear glass. He's shaping it on the marver. That'll help straighten the sides of it a little bit and cool things off. Now he'll blow, trap air in the blowpipe, and that compressed air has nowhere to go but to form a bubble out in the glass. A little bit of marvering to reshape, a little more cooling, and then he'll be going back for another gather of glass. So remember, please, to like, comment, and share. The comments are what get you entered in the drawing for the free piece. And this week, it's going to be this beautiful little frit bowl right here. And the winner of last week's piece, the Starfish, is Tracy Calkins Roll. And congratulations to Tracy. So get the comments flowing. Not only will we likely respond with some obtuse comment ourselves, it'll get you entered in the drawing for a free piece. Okay. So Todd's back for the second gather, and our furnace over there holds about 450 pounds of molten glass. We melt clear glass. Were we to melt a color, which we could, we'd be stuck with that color for the next week or so, or a large part of the week. We wouldn't have very many options. So that's why we like to melt clear and add color to it. He's using the cherry wood block right now. It's a wooden cup attached to a handle. It provides a little symmetry to the shape of the glass, and it also chills the outside, and it smokes. It's the veritable smoking gun of glass blowing. The glass is still moving. You can probably see that as he pauses the rotation. He gets that all centered, and now he's going to blow. And without trapping the air, he's just going to do what we call free blow, or just expand the bubble by breathing into it. Again, with the block to shape the glass, stabilize the outside, and before he takes another gather, this needs to get cooled off a bit. Were he to go in and gather when the glass is still very hot and moving all around, the heat of the next gather would cause what he's already done to collapse. The bubble would actually disappear, and he'd start over with it, which he could do, but why do that if you don't have to? Another thing we commonly do in gathering the glass is we don't gather what we would need for the final volume of the piece all at once. Sometimes that can be quite a bit of glass, and it will be very much uncontrollable. So by setting up a few smaller gathers first, we can approach the final amount that we want. We also try to gather, if not the exact amount we want, a little bit more, because it's easy to strip the glass off and let it flow off of the piece. But if we wound up 3/4 of a cup short on hot glass, it's hard to get that out of the furnace and just drizzle it onto the piece. So it's turning the iron in there. If he raises his arms, he's stripping the glass back into the furnace. That means it's usable later. If he still has a little bit much, into the bucket it goes. And there you see the fluid nature of the glass. When he brings the iron back up to horizontal and keeps it turning, the glass just burns itself right off. Well, good morning, Ruth. Glad to have you with us today. And Catherine. Okay, so after that gather, remember he cooled the interior portion of it and then put hot glass on the outside. Very important at this stage to equalize the temperatures. So that's accomplished by going in and heating the glass in the glory hole. Now he's back to the marver and his color there. A nice mix of pinks. Notice he's getting really full coverage on that, and he may do this a couple of times. Okay. He'll melt that in, and then another gather or two, Todd? Two more. Okay. All right. So we're really excited to be able to tell you that the Maryland Renaissance Fair is on course now for an opening. When was that, Foster? The weekend of August 28th? Yeah. The last weekend of August. We're running for 9 weeks. So we'll give you more details on the advanced purchase of tickets. And one of the main things is they are encouraging folks, especially those unvaccinated, to wear masks, okay? But it'll be open 100%. All right, there we go with another gather in the frit mix. So that frit does not need to be preheated. It's small enough pieces that they stick right to the hot glass. Spreading the glass out a little bit to make sure the next roll gets full coverage. And we look forward to seeing all of you at the Renaissance Fair. All right, so he's back into the glory hole again to heat things up. This is going to give the surface a nice heat treatment that will allow the pickup of the frit. It also keeps the glass from cooling off too much. Because even though Todd is occupied right now with picking up the frit and getting enough heat for that, he needs to keep enough heat throughout the piece that he doesn't have to come to a point of nearly remelting it all in order to work it. So he wants to keep the heat in the piece at all times. When he has the iron on the edge of the table like that and his hands angled down, you'll notice he gathers glass that's close to the pipe, and by inverting the angle, he managed to cover the whole gather. A little tap on the end, make sure that he's got full coverage there, and now he can sweep that aside as he's done with that color combination. If you've got any questions about the processes or anything, let us know. No, sir, I don't know what's coming next. You're going to have to wing it. A wing and a prayer? How about just the chicken dance? Okay. Yeah, that's right. Remember to like, share, comment. If you're interested in any of the pieces that you see made or in our catalog, you can order them online, artoffire.com. And you've seen this trick before. Todd's turning in one direction. He's turning the pipe clockwise. And what that will do is take those little dots of color and stretch them out into lines. We're going to move in a little bit closer momentarily, and you can see the lines appearing. Okay? We won't get too close because we don't want to overheat the phone again this week. How heavy is that right now? Oh, I'd say less than 2 pounds. It's not an incredible amount of glass right there. That was one small gather for the initial bubble, a second medium-sized gather to build up the clear base, and then a third gather to pick up the frit. So Todd right now is making a platter, and he's described the colors to us. And interestingly enough, let's watch it in the optic mold first. See how he's turning the iron in the optic mold? This is applying more twist to the frit. And when he comes out, we'll get a real good look at how those individual dots of color have now been stretched out into lines. And there you go. There they are. Okay? So it's that turning motion that does that. Well, welcome, Kristen. We're happy to have you, too. Okay, so Todd has taken the frit mix over there, which is basically a combination of pinkish colors, and he has applied them to the clear glass, and then he twisted it. So as he said earlier in the introduction, he's working inside out, or backwards. So the color frit you see here will be on the interior of the platter. It needed to go on first so that it would be exposed when the platter opens up. That'll be followed later by a coating of this gold color here, which will be the backdrop, the background for it. So Todd's going to gather once more yet, and we'll begin increasing the weight of this vessel for those of you that are interested in that sort of thing. And you'll roll through the frit, and that will be the background through which you see. Well, he's getting his UV glove. So if he's got his UV glove on, it's a pretty good chance he's going to do some raking. And since Todd's going to be doing some raking here, we will mention that he hires out for yard work. The gloves to protect his hand because of the proximity to the heat. He'll not only be very close with his hand to the gather of glass, but he'll be very close to the glory hole door. And that really does generate a lot of heat. So you may have seen us do this sort of thing a week or so ago, but we'll go over the process for those of you that may be new to it. Todd will heat the entire surface of that. When he brings it out, it'll be hanging downward a little bit. When he lets that fall, That'll be the surface he rakes. Right before he rakes, he'll flip it 180 degrees so that the glass is kind of pointing upward, and then he'll be able to draw that hook tool there through the glass. So here he's almost ready. Brings the glass out, lets it fall, flips it up, then grabs the end of it with the hook, and then draws the line of glass all the way back to the pipe, the area we call the moil. Now what he'll do is the opposite side. So he'll keep alternating the positions of this as he goes all the way around the piece. It's hard to see in the glory hole. There it falls, here he reaches up and pulls back. And you notice that glass is staying in line with the iron. And that's a really good thing, because if it falls way off center, it's trouble. So the key to this is the way he positions the iron when he starts to rake. You'll notice that he pushes his left hand down, the pipe is pointed up in the air, and now when the glass falls back down, it's actually falling in line with the pipe instead of away from it. And now he's got 3 of the raking motions completed. Hello, Kimberly. Welcome from Elk Ridge. So now what he'll do is flip it up. Notice the angle of the pipe. That's what keeps the glass from falling to a point that it might be 90 degrees or perpendicular to the pipe. So now he's got the 4 lines raked in that. They're all 4 evenly distributed, and he hasn't lost the shape of the piece. Yep, David, gravity works. So now comes the more difficult part, is when you rake away from the iron. Still with the angle, but he'll pull about halfway or more, and then go to the other side. This pulling motion, as you can imagine, would pull the piece off or away from the blowing iron. What exactly is it that raking does? Well, glad you asked. It creates a line, and it pulls the glass down the piece. And we'll get a display piece here for you in just a moment to show you what the finished product does. But imagine, if you will, that piece when it had horizontal lines going around it, when the frit was twisted. The raking through the horizontal lines then changes the shape. And while he does that, we're going to come over here and see if we can find a raked piece. Here's one right here that's been extremely raked. We'll find another one for you in just a few moments. It's really interesting to watch the process. So again, when he brings it out, he points the iron up in the air. He also closed the glory hole door so it didn't give him any more heat to deal with. Notice he's pulled about halfway on each side, and then he can come back. Were he to go the full distance on one side or the other, it would distort the shape of the piece. After this reheat, I imagine he'll return to the bench and finish the pull. But even when he does that, you'll notice that the mouthpiece, or the blowing end of the iron, is down low and the piece is held up high. It'll be at about a 45-degree angle as he finishes things out. Let's look from right here. See how the iron's held low? That allows him to pull a little bit at a time. And because that pulling motion pulls the piece off center, he makes small motions and alternates from side to side. And that's how he gets that done. Now he's going to pull out and clip off that little bit of those nubs that are down at the bottom. And he'll just get rid of that, and now it's a matter of heating and reshaping the glass back to where he wants. Say, Foster, could you go get us one of the vases that's been raked, like with the leaf pattern, like we were showing last week? We've had a couple of folks ask about them. Okay, they know exactly where to find one. Hey, we got Kimberly Stern with the HGM CGD. Thank you very much there, Kimberly. If there's anything this 11 months of glass blowing videos has done, it's integrated that into your vocabulary, huh? Thank you, Bruce. All right, so Todd now needs to reheat the piece, and then he'll reshape it, okay? So Foster's bringing out a piece right now. It's got some raking in it. We'll put it on the marver for a quick look. Or he'll hold it in his hand right here. So you see this kind of leaf-like design. So in this area right here, the glass was raked in this direction. You can see the pull lines, okay, from there to there. And then in between, they can pull downward, okay? See how that runs. And that's what the raking does. And so depending on the type of piece we're making, we can leave it with that effect like a leaf, or we can twist it up and make all kinds of other things. So Todd's getting a little more air in the piece, and he's reshaping it, gaining some symmetry. We're going to take a quick trip over here for the piece I showed you a few moments ago. This piece is also raked, but what's interesting about it is the rakes were twisted. And you can see the raking line going up like this and down like this. But instead of being left as straight lines up and down the piece, it was then twisted, which gives us another whole complex dimension to the piece. All right, so he's back to the glory hole now. He's got the design in the frit. The raking is done. And now all that remains is to make sure that he has his bubble in that and that the glass is shaped and ready for his next gather. When he has the iron held down like that, it gets the glass near the blowing iron. When he goes in this direction with the tip of the pipe pointed downward, he's cooling the end of it. And now when he blows, it'll expand evenly. By changing the angle of the blowing iron, he can change the shape of the glass on the end of the pipe. The further he comes to horizontal, the more cylindrical it becomes. And by doing that motion, he gets kind of a diamond shape here. So it's widest in the middle, tapered toward the pipe and toward the tip. And that just makes a really beautiful shape for both blowing and gathering and open things up. So again, he's going to have to let that cool off. And another swig from the single malt coffee cup. Yeah. Okay. Now he'll go over to the pipe cooler and cool the iron off. We'll take a look at the pipe cooler in just a moment. A lot of folks have asked, doesn't it get hot holding the pipe? Actually, even without a pipe cooler, you can go about halfway down the pipe without getting too hot, maybe even a little further. But by cooling the further reaches of the pipe toward the glass, you're able to gain leverage. You can actually grab the pipe closer to the glass. Yeah, the bubble does get moved some, and it's a little hard to see right now. There's a little bit of background light, but you can see possibly that the bubble goes about 2/3 of the way down into the piece, which is just a perfect proportion. Okay, great. And the reason that's important to us is we need to keep a reservoir of thick glass down in the bottom so that we don't get the bottom of the vessel too thin. So now Todd will once again gather. He'll go in at an angle and begin to gather. Then he'll pivot level to let a little bit trail off. Then he'll raise the iron again, and that lets some run off the end. Then he'll come out and let it drizzle off into our bucket. Now all of that glass in the bucket, the clear glass, can be recycled. After it's cooled off and it's in little chunks from breaking up, we can melt it when we recharge the furnace. Now he's putting the background color on. And a reasonable question would be, what do you mean background color? That looks like it's on top. But you have to remember, this is going to be a platter, so it's going to be opened up wide. So this will actually be the underneath portion of the platter. All that beautiful design he created with the raking of the pink colors will be what's exposed on the top once the platter is fully opened up. So he'll take a couple of turns through this. How you determine the thickness? It's just it is experience, and it's also just making a lot of different pieces. Todd knows what he wants this piece to be like at the end. For instance, this will probably be, about 13 inches in diameter? 15-inch diameter. So he's got that in mind already. So the very first time he made one of these many, many years ago, he may have wound up a little bit short or not quite enough glass. But through experience and doing it over and over, he knows how much glass to pick up on his gathers to make the size piece he wants. Also, as far as the thickness and the weight goes, were he to make a piece that was exceedingly heavy and difficult to move around, he might say, well, I don't need that much glass. So on a subsequent piece, he might have cut down a little bit. And after doing all these for 22 years, he's developed to the point that he knows how much glass he needs for an adequate thickness, but not too much. And if the question we had earlier about thickness referred to the bottom of the piece, it's essential to keep the bottom of the piece thick, because when we attach a punty to the bottom of it, we don't want the piece to get pulled out down there. We don't want the glass to break. How long does it take for the glass to melt and come to the right temperature? Well, Barbara, if you're talking about the glass in the furnace, it takes about an hour and a half to get it from our regular operating temperature up to a melting temperature. Then we load the furnace with the glass batch, we call it. It's the powdered glass. And we do that in several stages, because rather than load it with 150 pounds of raw material and cause the furnace to work so hard to melt that, we go in with smaller amounts till we get to whatever we need, perhaps 150 or 125 pounds, whatever the case may be. Great. Yep, in the furnace, Barbara says. So I am answering the right question. And we'll continue to look at Todd picking up the gold background of this platter. After the furnace is fully loaded with all the batch that we need, then it's set to a temperature to melt it. And that melting process can take about 8 hours or so. And then after that period, it has to do what's called fining out. So the temperature is reduced and the bubbles come up, because there would be some created from the melting, and we go a little bit below our regular operating temperature and then bring it back up. And so that whole process basically takes overnight. In fact, Foster did a charging on Sunday. I believe he started about 6 o'clock, 5?
Actually, about 5.
About 5 o'clock, and it was ready to be glass on Monday morning. So that's what's involved. So we're seeing Todd pick up a lot more of the gold. Again, he wants full coverage here. This gives him the background on the pink. Hello, Iceland. Very good to have you with us. And the reason he wants full coverage on this is he doesn't want bare spots on it. Okay, so he's getting that all covered up.
Do I try the bowl? Okay.
So now he's got a really good amount of glass on there. Now he's probably up in the 6-pound range on this, be my guess. We're going to get a lot of heat on it. And now he's going to use the marver to shape. When the iron is held down like that, with the tip pointing up, notice how the glass comes off of the blowing iron. It's becoming more cylindrical. By inverting the angle, it creates that conical shape out toward the end of the piece. And then he can blow, and it will inflate, but it won't inflate excessively at the bottom. See how he's still got the conical shape, and the middle portion of the glass is blowing out. That's because he cooled that bottom a lot, and that's made it so that it really doesn't blow out there. And again, the reason for the thick bottom is to keep the glass from cracking out later on in the process.
Fat bottom glass makes the rock.
Fat bottom glass, yep. And in lieu of fat bottom joint jokes, maybe we'll go to fat boy jokes. I got some looks for that. Okay. So I hope that answered your question, Barbara, about the heating and how long it takes to melt the glass. And we go generally through about 2 charges a week. Some weeks not so much, depends just on how much glass we're making. Todd has the jacks in hand now, 2 metal blades attached to a hinge, and what he's creating now is a point of separation from the blowing iron. By turning the iron and squeezing with the metal blades, he's able to make a constriction there and get that shape so that it will separate from the blowing iron. After cooling with the newspaper, he'll simply blow into the piece, and again, see that expansion, but without changing the shape of that cone at the bottom very much. As this gets wider and wider, he'll be able to blow that bottom out a little more, but he wants to save that reservoir of thick glass down there for later. He's got a pair of calipers over here. We'll be using those in a few moments to check the diameter of the vessel. So, most all the pieces we make are created by making a sphere or something nearly spherical with a jack line in it. And if we want it to be a bowl or a platter, we don't elongate it a lot, okay? If we want it to be a tall vase, then we let that sphere elongate through gravity or centrifugal force. Again, with the jacks to reinforce the neckline or jack line. And this technique that Todd's using now when he points the iron down like that is another one that really aids with centering and doesn't let the hot glass fall offline or off center. And centering is just really an equal distribution of the glass around the central axis of the piece, which is probably overboard for simply saying it's in line with the pipe. Look at the straight line of the pipe and look at the distribution of the glass. There's an equal amount of that ball distributed around the central line of the pipe. Of course, the pipe's not running into the glass. The pipe stopped a few inches back from that, but you get the idea. Once he gets this to a diameter that matches his calipers, then he'll know to go ahead with the rest of the shaping of the piece. But even though you don't have probably a good view of it right here, I'll tell you that those calipers are not measuring 15 inches. But they don't need to, because what he needs is a sphere that is less than that. Maybe a little more than half of the 15 inches, so that when he spins it out, he gets to the diameter he likes.
7.5.
What's that?
7.5.
It is 7.5, so it is exactly half. There you go. So when he can put the calipers on there and know that the diameter of this spheroid is 7.5 inches, and it's got an equal amount of glass up above it toward the blowing iron, he will know that when he blows it out, he'll get the 15-inch diameter he wants. So there you go. Now he's going to hook up the blow hose, a highly scientific piece of equipment with a complex name. It's a hose we blow through, but it really is a great thing because what it'll allow Todd to do is blow at the same time he works the piece with hand tools. You'll have noticed so far whenever he was blowing, he was pushing the iron away from him so he could put the mouthpiece in his mouth. That puts the piece itself about, I'd say 5 feet from his face, and his arms, unless they were 5 feet long, wouldn't reach. So, I think you're a couple feet short there, dude. Yeah, we could hang you from the rack and see if we could stretch it out that far. Anyway, back to the serious business of glass blowing. By using the blow hose, he will have the glass right in front of him at the bench. He'll pick up the newspaper to hold the glass in place, and then he'll be able to blow at the same time. You may be able to detect the increase in diameter of the middle of the piece. It's not getting any longer because he's holding back against it with the newspaper. That action does push it toward the blowing iron a little bit, so he cuts the jack line a little more and he checks his diameter. And it's making that noise that David would be proud of. David McDermott up in Sandwich, Mass. Has taught both Todd and me a couple times over the years. And he said that when he was a beginning glass blower, the master glass blower that oversaw his work would reject the piece if he didn't hear the calipers scraping the side of the piece, just barely squeaking against it. So Todd got that. Now Foster's taking another gather. This will be the foot. Todd has his shears in his pocket, ready to go. Foster has the glass for the foot. Todd's getting his flashes. Foster will prepare the foot by using the block and cutting a jack line. Todd's cooling the site where the foot will land with the soffietta or puffer. By cooling that a little bit, he keeps it from collapsing. In just a moment, we'll see Foster appear on screen with the foot on the iron, and Todd will take it and cut it off. Shears in his pocket. Yes, David, he's glad to see you.
I'm going to heat it and glory hole here for a moment. Okay, just make it quick. I think we're good. So fast. All right.
Okay, here we go. Foster raises it. Todd places it. Okay, had a little accident there. It just hit a little early. Didn't go up over the top, but we can get that fixed. Okay. Hey, stuff happens, you know? So what Todd can do now is squash the back glass back toward the piece, and he gets it sufficiently back there to cover up that little scar. So basically what happened there was the glass touched the side of the vessel before they were ready. But that's okay. Now that he's got that more symmetrical and shaped up there, he can go ahead and get the foot designed like he wants. Todd's going to use the jacks to separate the foot from the body, and Foster paddles the bottom flat. Yes, Wayne, it was a good recovery. And as we've said many times before, it's not what you can make, it's what you can fix. And that's an expert fix. And Foster, David Hogan says he hasn't been able to get his foot that high in years. A light moment always helps. All right, so Todd's handed it off to Foster for a flash. Todd will gather the glass for the putty and shape it. So yeah, that was really a great recovery, because the glass tagged the side of the vessel a little further away from the center, and you saw how by not panicking and taking his time, Todd was able to push the glass back, get it centered, and now he'll come over and place the putty onto the bottom of the foot. And then what Todd will do is turn both irons. If he needs to recenter the putty, he just pushes down on it a little bit. And then what he's going to do is chill the neck. And there it comes off. So we're off of the blowpipe, and we're back up to the glory hole with the transferred piece. Nicely done. Uh-oh, Bridget said she heard the birds. Well, I haven't got a notification yet about the phone being too hot, but if we're hearing a little bird announcement, then perhaps I should stay backed up a little bit. All right, so now what will happen with the rest of this? Well, we've got that 7.5-inch diameter at the widest part. What Todd will gradually do is open this vessel up until it's very nearly, I would say probably about 11 inches in diameter. Then heat the living daylights out of it and spin it out with centrifugal force to get it to go out to its full 15-inch diameter. So Todd will be using the jacks at first to open the mouth up a little bit. Then he'll probably use the parchofis or wooden jacks to open it further. Eventually this will get to look kind of like a straight-sided bowl. The lower half of it will stay the same. The change will be in the upper half. So let's watch. Yeah, it does look like Foster's ready to play cricket. David Hogan says he's ready to play cricket. All right, so Todd's concentrating the heat in the upper half of the vessel, and he's going to work this a little bit at a time. He's not going to try and get this all done on one heat. He approaches it gradually, keeps it under control, and away we go. So, he's heating the upper portion of the vessel. He will occasionally put the whole piece in the glory hole for a flash heat. Got to keep that temperature upwards of 1,000 degrees. Remember to like, share, and comment. We'd like to congratulate Tracy, who won the starfish from last week. We got a beautiful little bowl for you this week. Look at the top of that vessel, how it caved in. It caved in because of the heat. Glass tries to seek a spherical level, a shape, when it's hot. So what happened was the glass sunk in or compressed and pulled back.
Oh, he didn't say spiritual level. No, he said spiritual.
Spiritual level, yeah. All right, so he's got the wooden jacks out here right now, the parchofis.
No, I got those on there.
He's got those, and what he'll do is use them to open it up some. He's going to give himself another door opening there. The piece is starting to get a little bit larger in diameter. Not as much as it will on the spin out, but it'll give him a little bit more room to exit the glory hole. And Foster will be ready to shield his arm or flatten the lip, whatever he needs. Notice that the middle portion in the upper reaches has collapsed back again. That's the natural action of the glass. Todd uses the blades of the Parchopes to raise it. And he'll go ahead and get this open just about to the point that it's straight-sided. He'll even use the newspaper at one point to cool the glass a little bit at the very rim, because he's going to want the heat to penetrate deeply. So he'll be coming back in a moment here, using the Parchopes again to open that up. And we're about another reheat away from the final spin out. Now you can see he's got quite a larger diameter there. He's going to use the wooden jacks to open it up. And now the newspaper is chilling the upper reaches of that. He needs that heat to run all the way down to that central point where it's widest. And if the upper part of the vessel is so very, very hot, it could start to expand before the rest of it does. So that's why he pre-cooled it with the newspaper. Now he's in the glory hole pretty much full depth with the flame of the glory hole, the burner aligned with that widest part of the vessel. Yes, David, it does look good like that, but it's going to get even better. Now it's starting to blossom out and spread. He's got the heat in there, and when he comes out, that's it for the glory hole. He can't go back in. He spins it out, and then when he points it downward with a slow rotation, notice how he dips down and up. That creates the fall. And there's your design. Somebody had asked what the raking does. There's the floral design of those opposite direction
Okay,
rakes.
Elena and Ken, I hope that's going to fit the bill.
Okay, so as Todd said, this was a special order. He's going to knock it off. Foster will catch it in his gloved hands. Yeah, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. Okay. When he taps the iron, it'll come free into Foster's gloved hands. We'll get out of the way. Todd will open the doors for him, and into the annealer it goes. All right. And if you were live and in living color here, we would say you may applaud now. Thank you, Todd. Marvelous piece. Beautiful. A lot of great comments. Thank you, Foster. Here we go. All righty. So let's go back over here where it's a little bit cooler. And we'll let them decide what they're going to make. We don't have an actual program for it today so much because we're getting busy making product for the Renaissance Fair, which will be opening the weekend of August 28th, 29th. A lot of the pieces you see here may be on display, plus many, many, many more. Lots of hanging stuff, ornaments, flasks, fish, diamond-shaped ornaments, dragons, jellyfish, and of course we'll have mugs, drinking glasses, bowls, and vases galore. Lions and tigers and bears, oh my. Congratulations to Tracy Calkins-Roble, who won the starfish. And if you're commenting, you'll be in the drawing for this little bowl right here, which has really got a beautiful twisted frit design. So the colors are really marvelous, and somebody's going to enjoy that in their home. Okay, so there we have that going up. And let's go back and find Foster and see what's next, because I'm sure we're going to be giving Todd a bit of a break right here. Looks like Foster is busy throwing out some cranberry pink. Is that what it is, Foster?
It is cranberry pink.
What you going to make for us?
We're going to make glass. No. We'll go ahead and make our vase. And you'll have two colors. You'll have the cranberry at the top and it will have
The aquamarine?
an aquamarine at the bottom.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, the darker the color, it will help visually cement the piece.
Mm-hmm. Now, why, you may ask, is one color behind the other? Well, I'm glad you asked, because Todd laid his out on opposite ends of the marver. But in this particular case, Foster's going to use the cranberry and the aqua. And the reason the cranberry is a little bit further forward is that will be gathered closer to the blowing iron, okay? And that's where the top of the vessel is. And then the aqua will be at the bottom of the vessel, and that's why it's sitting over there behind it. So when Foster comes back to the marver, when he's got enough gathers and is ready to pick up the frit, he'll incline his iron so that it's pointed upward like this when he goes through the cranberry, and he'll point it downward like this when he goes through the aqua.
So
You get kind of a diamond shape.
Diamond-shaped parison, that's correct.
If you bring your fingers in, you could give us all the little heart shape for love. Yeah, there you go. Show us the love, Foster. Okay, there we go. Okay, we're going to have a contest. Who is Foster the love child of? I'm sorry, we don't really want to play that.
Don't go there.
Don't go there. All right, he'll take his first gather of clear glass, and then he'll be returning to the bench to cool it a little and shape it. Notice when it comes first out of the gather, it's really not quite symmetrical, but it's evenly gathered on the pipe, and there's a nice amount hanging off the pipe. With the block now, he'll be able to give it a nice symmetrical shape that will also chill the outside just a little bit. The blocks are made of cherry wood. Any type grain fruit wood would work, but what it does is it allows us to not burn the wood up as much, and the wood is cut green. It's never dried out and is always kept in water, hence the water buckets there. Now, as it cools a little more, he's going to blow real hard in the blowpipe, cover it with his finger, and that compressed air has nowhere to go but out into the bubble. Or actually, it makes the bubble. It goes out into the hot glass. Now, if we cool that glass too much, it's hard to blow into. But as long as the glass is hot, the bubble will expand. And of course, that always goes back to what, David Hogan? We'll see how many. The bird is chirping. The bird is a word. Okay, I'll back away from the heat. So, of course, the bubble expands because hot glass moves and cold glass don't. All righty. Let me try to get away from the heat source. There we go. Got the HGM going. Oh, the birds are singing. Okay, it might be that even though we're not getting a notification or indicator, that we're getting a little overheated here. So what we'll do in a moment, now Foster, see how he angled the iron, and he's got the cranberry color up toward the top, and then he rolls through the aqua right behind it, and it's okay if they overlap a little bit, because they're going to meld together anyway, and he'll do that a couple of times to get the color distributed on the piece. Hot glass moves and hot phones don't. Oh, I like that, David. That is a good one. We'll remember that.
And hot what doesn't?
Hot phones don't.
There you go.
All righty. Okay. Foster's altered the heat a little bit on the glory hole, going around back to hit the gas and the air adjustment. And are you done picking up frit, Foster? Or one more?
I picked up one more.
One more gather of frit. There we go. One frit over the line. That brought a smile to his face. All right, once through the cranberry, once through the aqua, and then it'll be time to melt that in. Also notice that with his pre-planning, he left himself some space on the front of the marver to be able to use the metal without getting into the frit. So how we set up the frit on the marver is actually something that's considered before we even start making the piece. We kind of pre-plan things, decide how we think it should go, and then get it. Alrighty, so Foster's getting the optic mold out now. Oh yes, Wayne, the unused frit can be used again, and that's the reason there's about a 2-inch gap between those two lines. And if you want to really upset Foster, go over there and sweep the frit off by mixing all the aqua with the cranberry, because that renders them unusable as an individual color. So with that little gap in between, he can brush the cranberry forward, the aqua back, separate the two of them and put them back in the container. And if his cameraman / assistant here wasn't so lazy, he could go over and do it for him. But I know you're enthralled by the commentary, so I won't digress with that. He's cooled the piece on the marver. Now he's blowing, and we'll watch it expand again. So what Foster's setting up right now is a shape to go into this optic mold. So he's going into this one here. The glass is obviously not that tall, but the mold is tapered. So he wants the glass tapered also so that it will go into the mold nice and even, and you'll get a good blowout. So he drops that in, he'll let it seat, and then he'll blow into it, trap the air expands into the glass, into the ridges, and there we come out with the ridges in the glass. All righty. Now, once again, with the Widdershins, or counterclockwise for those of you that haven't been watching us for a while. He's turning in one direction only, and that twists those ridges, in this case, counterclockwise. And the term Widdershins is an ancient term which really basically has to do with being against the sun, a form of telling direction. All right, so he'll probably twist that up a little bit more. There he is, turning it counterclockwise. You can see those lines in the glass. Get over here for a quick look without too much heat. There we go. And now he's to the bench. He's using the jack blades to cut a little line in it and kind of grip the glass right there. This helps him twist it all the way down to the end. By gripping it with the shears and holding and twisting against it, it's twisted all the way to the bottom, and that's all he needed there. Okay. Now it's back to the glory hole for some more reheating. The design elements are in the piece now. So however much time that's taken, that's the first part of it. Now it's time to begin making the piece of glass.
I'm going to case over this.
You're going to case it? Okay. All right, so instead of leaving the frit on the outside of the surface, the outside of the vessel, then perhaps giving it a feel of a little texture, he's going to gather over that. But once again, he's probably going to block it, shape it up so that he gathers over a nice symmetrical shape. He also doesn't want to trap any air bubbles when he gathers. So he's going to smooth this out. A little bit more air into it. And again, we usually fill about 2/3 to 3/4 of the volume with air. That's a good proportion, and he's looking through it. He can see the bubble. Make any final adjustments and then go for another gather. He will not be on the horse with no name, though, David. All righty. Notice that cherry wood cup just fits nicely right around that gather of glass. If you can see the edge of the bubble, you can see he's got a decent amount of thickness around the bubble. There's a thickness of glass all the way around it. And that's essential to keep it from collapsing on itself. That's part of the structure. Those walls give it structural integrity. It's cooled a little bit now, and he'll go back for another gather. How does the gathering work? Let's see. In terms, well, he'll put that in there and not really start turning till he's in the glass, and that lets it fill any voids that might have been left by the twisting of the optic ridges. He's going to let a little bit of glass strip back off, and now he's got just the right amount of glass that he needs to complete his vessel. You can see a darker core there. That's the original area where the colors were on the first two gathers. Now he's going to block that some more, stabilize it. Okay, so as far as how the gathering works, if I'm not answering the question you're asking, maybe give me a little more information, but typically we gather in multiple steps so that we build up the volume. Somebody had kind of asked a similar question on Todd's piece. It might be entirely possible for the glass blower to gather the full amount of glass they need on one gather, but it might be so massive that it's difficult to control. So we do it in stages. Foster, in this case, has chosen to coat the outside of his vessel with clear glass. Okay? So that's going to help with the blowout, the stability, and the heat distribution. The only thing he had to be careful of when he gathered was that he didn't leave any voids or pockets in the layer of glass before he went in the furnace, because that could trap air bubbles. And we can see right now when we're looking that it doesn't have any air bubbles trapped. So he did a nice smooth job of gathering over that. If there were any voids, he filled them completely. So now he's got the volume he needs for this particular piece. He's cooling the tip of it, or the end, so that it doesn't blow out. Now he's going to blow, and we'll watch the expansion, and that conical point is still there. And that's from the cooling. You can see a little bit of shading in this. The lower half of the vessel is a little hotter than the top, but not much. The top is just hot enough that Foster is able to use his jack blades to cut a jack line or neckline, we call it either way, and that's where the piece will separate from the blowing iron. He'll touch that up probably every time he comes back to the bench. As he blows it out a little bit, it also inflates the jack line a little bit. So he'll go back and squeeze that down. He's going to go reheat right now and repeat the process. You know the three most profitable words in marketing? Lather, rinse, repeat. Sells double the amount of shampoo. Foster and I wish we had enough hair to require washing it twice. Usually just a quick rinse is good enough, huh? All right, he's going to cool the tip of that again by angling the iron down, cooling the end of the glass, and we'll see where the inflation begins. And if you're Janet Yellen watching, you probably wonder when the inflation will end. Okay, so there we go. We've got the sphere with a jack line in it. He may go for a little larger diameter. We'll see in a moment. And he'll probably want to cut the jack line down a little more at some point. The jack line's really important as far as the transfer goes. Now, by swinging it gently like that, you'll notice it elongated some. And now we can come straight on up to the bench, squeeze the jacks on that constriction, getting a nice crisp jack line in there, or neckline. That's the point of separation. The wet newspaper cools the bottom. You can see Todd in the background carefully removing the cranberry and the aqua to make sure that they don't mix. It's kind of like Ghostbusters, don't let the streams cross. He's got the heat in it now. Now watch how he elongates this. He starts gently, and even when he spins it overhead, it's a slow, controlled move. Never fast, with a little pause in it, just to make sure that he's getting the elongation he wants. The newspaper chills the bottom, and he can blow a little bit for some more diameter. So whenever we swing the piece out like that, we take a spherical shape and we make it longer, we know we're going to lose diameter. Does the frit add a lot of weight to a piece? No, not at all. He probably doesn't have more than about 4 ounces tops of frit in that. Notice that nice gentle motion back and forth. Nice sound effects, Todd. Okay, and there we go. So now we got a nice shape here. He can taper it a little bit with the paper pegs. Foster is one of the few artists that use these paper pegs. They're basically cardboard tubes that have been burned a little bit and have a carbon surface on them. They don't steal very much heat at all. They're not kept in water all the time. We all know what happens to newspaper or cardboard left in water. But they are dipped occasionally so they don't burn. Did you all just hear a bird? All right, now he's going to flatten the bottom with the paddle while Todd prepares the punty. A ding, okay, and a ping. We had a ding and a ping, all right. Not a tweet, okay. We'd have to go to Twitter for that, and we've been banned from Twitter. Sounds like a Facebook message notification. Oh, I try to ignore those. Okay, Foster cools the putty a little bit, places it in the center of the bottom. He'll get that aligned by pressing on his tweezers. And then once again, he'll put a little drop of water onto the neckline and the vibration will break it free. Notice the orange glow still in the putty. That orange glow in the putty is important. It doesn't have to be really bright, but we need some indicator that there's heat in the putty. Okay? If there's no heat in the putty and it turns completely dark, there's a pretty good chance that when the piece comes off of the blowing iron, it'll break free of the putty too and into a floor model. So that's one of the things we can watch to make sure that we're not headed toward that sort of mistake. That piece was cold enough to fracture at the neckline. It's going to take a little while to reheat. So Foster's doing that right now. He's concentrating the heat in the mouth or the opening of the vessel. You can see he's pulled back a little bit. Every once in a while, he puts the whole piece in to flash heat it. Very important to keep some warmth in that glass. It needs to stay above 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit to avoid cracking. So nobody's asked me in all these months if 1,000 degrees is so important, why do you put it in an annealer that's held at 900 degrees? And I'm glad I asked myself that question. So what we don't want is out here in the open room, which is unfortunately approaching 100 degrees Fahrenheit. If the glass gets down below 1,000, it's going to decrease in temperature very rapidly and break. So that's why we flash it. Now let's watch Foster flatten the lip a little bit with the back of the jacks and then start to open. And Todd paddles the lip flat. When was the last time one of you accidentally cracked a piece? That's probably been in the last week or two. Somebody's lost one. It happens.
Accidentally.
Okay, not often. So, and hopefully not the big ones that are taking a long time. So anyway, back to that business of the 900 degree annealer. When we put the glass away in the annealer, the glass might be at 1,300 degrees Fahrenheit. And the glass is really very good to go down to 900 degrees from there and hold. In fact, it can hold there all day, and that's in fact what we do. Foster is now flaring the lip, and now he's straddling the glass with the jack blades to constrict the shoulder area. He's come back over the top of the vessel. The blades are on either side of the vessel, and he's squeezing it down. And that's how he gets this really elegant flare on it. He'll be using the steam cone next. When he comes out, we'll take a good look at the shape of it just before he starts inflating it. So anyway, when we put the glass away at maybe 1,300 degrees and it falls to 9, it's safe. When we turn the annealer off at 900 degrees, it'll take a full 8 hours to get down to room temperature, and that's where the critical temperatures are to avoid cracking. We're going to avoid the cracking. Okay, we're going to try and get a good view here. You can see him over top of the vessel, either side with his jacket. Look at the taper of the shoulder and watch what happens to it when he puts the steam cone in. It begins to inflate and bring the shoulder up closer to the lip for a much more elegant shape. There we go. And that's how we use the steam cone. The steam cone is simply another piece of cherry wood. This one is not, it is solid, it's not carved, it's just carved into a conical shape.
I think we're good.
Okay, there we go, another beautiful piece. When that wet piece of wood is put into the opening of the vessel, the heat creates steam and it inflates. And now it's time to put it away. A few taps with the butter knife. And then he'll tap with the hammer handle. Todd will catch the piece. and put it away into the annealer. All right, let's hear it for Foster. We're getting some yay Fosters, lovely, spectacular Foster. It's a beautiful thing. Someone even said that the aqua took on the appearance of green leaves below your cranberry. Absolutely beautiful. Okay, so let's get out of the heat for a moment. And I'll come back on over here. We'll talk a little bit. Looks like, well, I'm not sure what's going on because this is kind of freeform today. So these fellas will tell me what's up. And congratulations to Tracy Calkins-Warble to winning the Starfish. This comes from making your comments. This is the prize for next week, this beautiful Twisted Frit bowl. Got a lot of pieces hanging here. We're going to have lots more of these and on display at the booth at the Renaissance Fair, which will be coming up the weekend of August 28th and 29th. Lots of pieces like this, many more, a lot that you've probably seen in our gallery. Hey, Foster.
Yes, sir.
If you have a moment, would you describe again how the people can get the tickets to the Ren Fair online?
Yeah, Ren, RENN renfest.com, and you have to be date specific with your tickets, and do that now, and maybe, and we'll look forward to seeing you.
Okay, cool. So go online to get them. What he mentions about being date specific, there is a limited number of tickets sold for each event. And once those tickets are sold, they sell no more. Bridget, I'm fairly certain they are, but let me go ask the real and true boss, Vita, with a gift certificate. Can someone make a purchase at the fair? Can someone make a purchase at the fair with a gift certificate? Absolutely. Okay. Bring it with you. Okay. Yeah, Joanna, it would be nice to have you here with us. Maybe someday. Okay, the Ren Fair, I doubt that we're going to be doing that live. We did have a little bit of discussion about maybe trying something from there one time just for a little quick demonstration so you can see it. If nothing else, we will have some video that we'll post online about returning to the Ren Fair, but details on that are a little bit tight at the moment, if you will. So Foster right now is heating up some color. Todd has gathered some clear glass on a blowing iron, and he's shaping that up. And what they're going to do here is called an overlay. So Todd has that small bubble of glass, and Foster is heating up a little bit. Is that white? It's white. Okay. So this is going to serve a couple of purposes, but to let you know what you're going to see here in a moment, after Foster has the hot bit of white fully prepared, Todd's going to take it and let it drop down onto the clear bubble he has. Now he's taking a little bit of glass off right there because he's got a tad more than he wanted. So the way this works is okay, so they're going to shake this up by rolling it like that. He pushes a little off the iron, and that makes it a lot easier. If Foster were to hold that up in the air, the glass falls back toward the iron. So by pointing it downward just a little bit, we're holding it perfectly level. It just stays right there, just off the end of the iron. Todd will hold the iron upright, the glass pointed toward the ceiling. Foster will deliver the color, and Todd will place it on the end of that clear bubble. Todd guides it on, and then pulls it up gently and cuts it free. So now he's got this little glob of white on top of the clear. Okay? Partly so, Catherine. It does have to be hot to melt in. It's what we call a stiff color. So it's a combination of its working characteristics. It's slow to heat, and then it's slow to cool. So what Todd's going to do now is roll. See how he's pushing in toward the marble? He starts at the edge and pushes across. Just like rolling on a pair of socks. He gets that white glass to cover the clear completely.
All the way to zero.
Okay. So the overlay like that serves a couple of purposes. One is a nice even distribution of color. Also, with that clear interior, it gives him an advantage when he does the blowout, because the interior is the clear glass, which moves a little more easily. The heat's distributed a little more evenly, so that's really nice to work with. And when it comes time to open the vessel up at the end, his tools, the jacks, will actually be going inside on clear glass instead of on the white glass. David Hogan doesn't use a blow tube to put on his socks. However, I can assure you that as you age, you will probably get one of those little grabber devices that keeps you from bending over to reach down and grab your socks. I actually own one, but I use it to catch snakes because I don't like catching them in my bare hands. But they call them grabbers. I got...
Put socks on the snakes for them when you get them.
Okay. So yeah, when I have to catch a snake that's wandered in the house or something, I have this little grabber tool that I use to gently persuade them to go back to their own environment. Todd's gathered up more glass. He's gathered clear on top. So now that white glass is surrounded on the inside. It's covering clear. On the outside, it's covered by clear. So you have a lot better heat distribution. And when he goes to blow it out, it'll be a lot more even. And it looks like Foster's over here preparing a color bit. Is this going to be a random trail or threaded?
Now we're going to thread the 5 threads black.
Okay, a fine thread in black. A fine thread you have there, my friend. Okay. All right, so when it comes time for the threader, we'll be over to this device over here. Todd's shaping up the glass. He's going to get pretty much a cylindrical shape. And he's going to lay the iron up between these two wheels that are about 2.5, 3 feet apart. And they are angled just a little bit so that when the pipe is turned, it travels. So by turning the iron, the glass will move further toward the wall. And while they're getting all that set up, let's see if we can make it happen. I'm going to take an iron here. We'll put this up on the threader and make sure we're in the field of view. So we're all the way out here, and now I'm going to start turning it, and you can see it's moving further and further down toward the end of that piece of wood. And that's exactly what they'll be doing here in about 45 seconds. Well, maybe a little more than that. Looks like Todd's taking another gather right now. Foster's got the black encased. Why did it have to be snakes? Because that's what lives out near my house. I don't know. I'd rather try to catch the snakes with a grabber than a groundhog. I don't think they make a grabber that big. So Foster has encased the black. He picked up the color, and while I was digressing with the threader and the corny jokes, Foster encased it with clear glass. So you can see him now reshaping it, and there's a very thin layer of clear all around that black. So Foster's going to get that really, really hot, as Todd said. Really, really hot. Not just hot. Not hot, hot. Not really hot. Really, really hot. Okay. The purpose for the casing of that color is to keep it from bleeding or spreading out. So lots of times, my most experience with this, other than glass, has been in doing the laundry and watching the colors bleed from poor temperature control. So by casing that piece of black with the clear, when he threads that on, it will not spread out or bleed. Okay. Todd's getting the iron set with the white. He's got that notch aligned. That's where Foster's going to place his bit iron, and the black will come up. He'll touch it, pull back, and Todd will begin turning. So when he's saying back, 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 he wants the line thinner. As he says pull back or push in, that line of black will get thinner or thicker. Todd keeps turning. We lay the line on all the way down to the end, a nice, smooth, even distribution, and he flicks it off with his finger. All righty. Beautiful job, guys. Okay. So now he's got the threading on. Any decorative elements to the thread? A rake or anything? No.
Something different. We're going to crack it.
Aha!
And then we're going to blow it out into a sphere.
Okay.
We'll see how much the cold affects it when we crack it. And we'll see if we can keep that really round shape. So we'll have a really pretty background, smooth background with the
Okay.
dots and dots of color.
With lots of bits and pieces. Oh, come on. Somebody's got to know the Dave Clark 5.
Give it 5. Take 5.
Take 5. That was Dave Brubeck. All right. There he goes in the crackle.
Not bad.
All right. And there we go. We got the cracks showing up in there. And then as he heats it and blows it out, those will spread apart some. He'll have his crackles in there.
Just a little ball. This is good. Okay.
Actually, Todd flicked that away with his fingernail, and he did it very quickly, and he licked his finger first, and if it hadn't come right off, he'd have gone ahead and got a tool to do it.
Not for the thin part.
Beautiful spiral design with cracks running through. All right. Remember to like, comment, and share. If you comment, you're going to get it entered in the drawing for next week's giveaway. Sharing, we really appreciate it. We'd like to increase our viewership. And of course, like anyone else, we like to be liked. All right, here we go with the jack line. So how does he know where the end of the pipe is when he decides to cut the jack line? Well, one way is to watch where the glass has begun to expand, because it's not going to expand in the pipe. It's going to expand in the glass. So where that rise begins tells you where the end of the blowpipe is. But we've all had the occasional screw up where we have actually started cutting our jack line over the blowpipe. Not very often, maybe once a year, if that. But it is incredibly embarrassing if other glass blowers are watching, and it's a difficult thing to recover from. So when we teach beginners, we tell them that their name is not Clark Kent. They cannot bend steel. They need to use their jacks in the glass, not on the steel. However, if there are any Clark Kents out there that wish to prove us wrong, bring your own tools. Beautiful spiral pattern there. Todd will rotate that fast enough to make us all dizzy later on. But right now, you can see what that's like to look at. The cracks are still there, the interruptions in the spiral pattern, and the spiral still goes all the way to the bottom. Beautiful. All right. So we're putting a cheater on it right now. And what do you need? Your other tweezers? So sometimes we put this little cheater or button on the bottom of the piece if we're afraid the glass is getting too thin. But another reason for it is so that when we take the piece off of the putty eventually, it doesn't take the glass off the bottom where he has that spiral. That's protecting the spiral. So now he's heating it up again. And he's going to come back. He's going to let that collapse back toward the pipe a little bit. Notice how he's holding it at an upward angle and blowing. That lets the glass fall back toward the pipe, keeping that spherical shape. He's going to flatten the bottom gently with the back of the jacks while Foster prepares the putty. Foster's going to cool the iron a little bit here in our pipe warmer. Yes, Joanna, it is going to be an awesome piece. And right now we're all looking around for Todd's missing tweezers. So I'm just going to take a quick stroll over here and see if they might have gotten misplaced elsewhere. Come out wherever you are. Let's go ahead, he says. Yep, time to get the glass made. We'll find the tool in a minute. Okay, so he's got that putty centered up on the bottom and well attached. Going to let that cool a little bit, but he's going to chill the neck with a little bit of water. And then the vibration will make the glass break free, and Foster takes it to the glory hole for reheating. Now that putty was still a little hot, so there's no need to put the whole thing in there right away. But Todd will flash it in a moment and then continue to heat the lip or the opening of the vessel. So it's a really cool design. This black trail just crackled beautifully, and you'll notice too that the lines stayed nice and tight because of the casing of the black before it was applied. That didn't bleed out or spread around. Got a really tight, nice design on that. Takes a little while to reheat because it was cold enough to fracture. And then in a minute, he'll come back and begin the opening process. Notice how the end of what was a sphere has collapsed back some. That's because of the natural tendency of the glass to seek a more compact spherical shape. But by using the tools, Todd's able to open it back up. The newspaper cools and shapes the top of it. So sometimes when we use the newspaper or another cooling device on the glass before we go into the glory hole, that's to keep that portion of the glass cool. It's pretty obvious that when you stick the whole thing in there, it's all getting hot all the way around. There's not just one part of it that's getting hot. So if you want a particular section, like maybe the upper 2 inches, to be a little cooler, you cool it before you go in or right after you come out. You can see the brighter red color almost in the black. Now watch what happens to that shoulder as he uses the Sophietta to puff it out. and we're back to the spherical shape. Again, with a little bit of cooling just to keep it from heating too much there. And this may put you in mind of the piece we made last week, which was a sphere. And at some points in the process, it didn't look exactly like a sphere because the glass kept moving. But the job of the glass blower is to figure out how to move it back to where he wants it. We've got an excellent demonstration of that today. By pointing it downward, the glass falls away from the iron, bringing it back out more. And from back here, you can see this really beautiful spherical shape. Again, with the Sophietta, which will puff out the hot areas. So working it a little bit at a time, not all at once, just keeping control of things and moving it around. And who knows, this piece may be on the shelf at the Maryland Renaissance Fair come August 28th and 29th. Is this a special order piece, Todd?
No, just something I thought would be fun to try.
Okay, so the fun to tries also show up at the Ren Fair.
Or in somebody's, in a box to come to somebody's home.
Oh, absolutely. You can order this piece if you want. Contact us at artofire.com. Send us an email. You can give us a call, 301-253-6642. Todd's going to take one more flash and then take it off. There'll be pictures posted tomorrow, and you're going to see how nice and tight that black trail stayed due to the casement of the threading, and also the way that it's broken in spots due to the crackling effect. A little bit of water right on the putty joint, and it taps right off. Into the annealer we go. Yeah, Foster's doing sock puppets now. We're gonna have the little monkey incorporated into our insulated gloves next time. All right, thank you, Todd. Beautiful piece. Foster's going to adjust the temperature of the annealer a little bit, and is that it for the day, sir? That's it. That's all, folks. Yeah, all of us tried to do that. Okay. All righty. Well, thank you for joining us today. Once again, we'll make the announcement that we have the word that the Maryland Renaissance Fair will be opening up the weekend of August 28th and 29th. It'll run for 9 weeks. Art of Fire will be there in all its resplendent glory with many of the pieces you see right here and many more. Lots that are in our showroom right now or in our catalog as yet to be made. So if you'd like to see any pieces made, if you'd like to order a piece and have made on the video, get your orders in. We can even use gift certificates. We'll issue a gift certificate, and as Theda has told us, if someone shows up at the Renaissance Fair with an Art of Fire gift certificate, we'll gladly apply that toward the purchase at the fair. So, from the Art of Fire, I'm Bruce. Have a great week, and so long.